Hi guys, welcome back to our channel. Today we are doing a question from our Ask Me Anything form. If you guys don't know, this is a form that we have made so that others that are struggling on the twin flame journey can ask their questions. We can respond to them here on YouTube, and not only helps us create new and interesting content for you, but it also helps other people who might be struggling with the same thing and also not be able to find the resources to answer those questions. So I just want to take a moment before we start this video and say thank you so much to everyone who has asked a question on this form, whether we have answered it or not. I think the beautiful thing, the most beautiful thing about communication and about sharing our questions and our experiences together is that even through just hearing somebody say something out loud, it can get rid of the stigma or the shame around something, which provides like instant healing. So even if we haven't answered your question, just know like I have read it, I have reviewed it, and like I am sure that even just in me reading it, you are being witnessed, right? Or I'm seeing a part of you, or I'm seeing a part of myself within you, and that is healing in and of itself. So I just want to take a moment to say thank you to everybody who has asked a question and who has filled out the form. If you are struggling in an area on your twin flame journey and you do need support, the form is down below. If you'd like to ask anything, please do. Nothing's off the table. And so that leads us to today. Today we have a lovely question from Shupi. And so we are going to read it. It's on James's phone here, so I'm just going to be looking down as I read it. So this says, "Hi guys, I hope you're well. My question is slightly unusual. It's based on a time when you are preparing to come into union with your twin. There's a narrative in the twin flame community that as a divine feminine, you have to be whole, as in spiritually, emotionally, and financially, in order to attract your DM into union. Question is it possible to attract physical union even if you are financially struggling? Just for context, I've always been hyper independent since childhood because of my needs not being met. So I always planned that when I become financially free, I would live my life in a solitude way from anyone I know, including my twin, for the same reason. So it feels like I'm divinely put in financial struggle so that I let my twin back into my life again, as he has that insecurity around me being so full that there's nothing for him to provide." Okay.
Damn good question.
This is a very good question, and there's lots of parts to it, including like diving into roles. There's parts about diving into limiting beliefs. There's a lot of parts to this question, so I feel like we should probably just start from the beginning, and just kind of go down the line. I've heard why is this such a thing in like the twin flame community? I've heard this before, that a lot of twins think that they need to, especially divine feminines, need to have their businesses up and running. They need to be like financially secure before union happens. I don't know why this is such a thing. I don't know why this is a belief system. But I would say that this is not true. It might be true for some of you, but remember that each twin on the twin flame journey is moving through different lessons for the collective and for themselves, right? So for some, their keys to union might be in starting that new earth business. For some of them, it might be, yes, when they finally allow enough financial abundance to come into their lives, then they realize that they can also allow their twin flame into their lives, because the way we receive money, love, health, is all the same. It's all the same receiving factor. So I'm sure that this is true for some twin flames, but I do not believe that this is true for all twin flames. And I think we should probably talk about our experience with this. So, and in this question, it says particularly the divine feminine. Now, as most of you guys know, James and I don't specifically resonate with the divine feminine, divine masculine categories. We talk more from the perspective of runner and chaser, because there's not as much feminine masculine energy attached to it. it's more of like a neutral gender, but different polarities. And I know like the divine feminine, divine masculine could be this described the same way, but I think that to me gets more confusing, where the runner chaser thing is a little bit more simple to me in terms of twin flame labels. But you use the labels that resonate with you. That's what's really important. So in terms of our dynamic, so prior to us, let's just talk about like financials on both of our ends. Prior to us coming together. So prior to us coming together, I was very financially well off. When I had quit working as a hairstylist, I had a lot of money saved up. I also had sold my home, so I had gotten back whatever money came in from selling my home. And this is what allowed me to be free and travel for almost 2 years upon meeting James. So when I first met you, I was financially, I would say, in a good place.
Abundant.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would agree that you were very financially abundant when we first met.
Yeah.
From my side, I wasn't as financially abundant. I had left my job where we currently live now to go to where we met in the Transkei, where I wasn't making, a whole lot of money, but I had what I needed. So financially speaking, I didn't have excess, but I had enough to keep me where I was at that point. But didn't really allow for much growth at that moment, at least not financially speaking. In other areas of my life, obviously, there was a lot of growth that I did when I was there. But from the financial aspect, when I was there, I was stable but not abundant.
So I like the word that you used, excess. So you had exactly what you needed, but kind of no more, no less type of a situation.
Yeah, I had a little bit here and there that could go if I don't know, one buy myself a chocolate bar or something. Like, it wasn't,
scraping by.
Yes, digging in the bin to try find something. I was comfortable, but I wasn't, I couldn't go drink a 6-pack of beers every single night and not have to worry about it.
Yeah.
One, I wouldn't do that, and two, because it works out to be very expensive.
So then upon meeting, and then getting into our early stages of union, because this is part of the question, right? So I was working on YouTube at that time. I had just kind of started my YouTube stuff, so I wasn't really making much money, but again, I still had all of this savings. So for me, I was kind of the financial supporter in the beginning of our relationship, where I paid for the majority of like our houses, like if we were staying somewhere in Airbnb or when we had our apartment, we had worked out an agreement where you were paying a bit less in rent and I was paying a bit more. Do you remember we actually divided up that second room, because I was using that second room as my office?
You mean divide up or you took?
Like, no, I mean divided it up financially. Yeah. Like, we divided the number of rooms in the house that we would use, and then because I was using this extra room, I was paying more for rent. Yeah. Do you remember that?
We made it sound like that, so it wasn't, I think, like maybe as heavy at the time. Because you could afford more, so therefore you had more, where I could afford less, so therefore I didn't have less, but I had less.
Yeah, you definitely, I mean, for sure. But I think also, like, I wanted the sole use of those spaces.
And I didn't need them.
So you didn't need them, right? So it was like this thing where it made sense that way for me to then financially claim them, which helped you out and helped me out, right? So it was like a win-win scenario.
Almost like a business expense.
But in our early days, I was also paying for all of the groceries and then a lot of the dates as well, like if we were going out to do anything fun. But what's really interesting about this, so James would, generally speaking, I would say, identify more as the divine feminine in the relationship. So if we had to identify as one or the other, usually the chaser is the divine feminine and the runner is the divine masculine. So in that context, we would definitely flip-flop for sure. But
still do.
In terms of what this question is asking, you would be the divine feminine, and you didn't have a job, because you had left your job to come back here so that I could come. So you actually sacrificed that part of yourself in order to be here. Yeah. And do you remember we had that one moment when we were staying in your grandparents' place and you were looking for a job because the other job didn't come through?
Yeah.
And remember, I was like having a download saying like, hey, you need to be open to something. And then do you remember that old guy knocked on the door, just started randomly talking to you about carpentry? And do you remember a week later you had a carpentry job?
Yeah, my mate called me up and said, hey, what are you doing? You working? I said, no. He said, well, do you want to see if you can come work with us? And I was like, cool. And it kind of all worked out well. And that kept us, that allowed me to rent that other place with you as well, where we're actually able to, I could provide a bit more.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think when it comes down to it in terms of finances, this is going to be unique to each twin flame pairing and to each scenario. I think the big thing to consider, and I think this is why financials like comes into the play, and it was said also, like it was even said in this question where it says, as the divine feminine, you have to be whole and complete, as in spiritually, emotionally, and financially. But like, so if what I'm having a hard time understanding in the twin flame community is why, if you aren't financially like well off or financially abundant, why does that make you not whole and complete?
Yeah,
you know, so I think that's a limiting belief in and of itself, because you can be whole and complete. And this is where I think, you guys, we need to change the idea of what abundance is. Abundance is everything being able to be paid in divine order. So if you haven't heard of this quote, I think it's a Native American quote that says, anything more than what you need is poison. And so when you were living in the Transkai, I think about this, you know, like you might not have had excess, right? But you had exactly what you needed and maybe a little bit more, right? Yeah. And I think that is abundance, to have exactly what you need, to have the payment come in exactly when it should. When the bank account is about to hit zero, the payment comes in and it's a refresher, right? And there's nothing wrong with living that way. I think in today's society, we've been brainwashed to say, if you don't have your 401k, you don't have your savings, we all go through periods of time where our energetic stores are really high and our financial stores are low, or our financial stores are really high but our love stores are really low. Like, there's all these different facets to life, and Teal Swan talks about this in one of her videos, about how we can't have it all at once. This is the human evolution. We can't have it all at once. As soon as you get the money, maybe your health is going to go down a little bit, right? And it's because we've been programmed with these limiting beliefs of not being able to have it all. And plus, if we had it all, there'd be no reason to keep going on, right? So I think the thing that to keep in mind about this in terms of like from a twin flame perspective is you are whole and complete. If you have not a penny to your name, you're still whole and complete.
Even if it's negative.
Yeah, even if you have more debt to your name than anything else, you're still whole and complete. Like, I think the perspective here is nothing can make you not whole and complete. Even your belief that you're not whole and complete is whole and complete, right? So I think it's about shifting the perspective on that. What is your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, for me, when we first read that question, first thing that came to me off the bat was like, we get so caught up in these things that we have to have all of these blocks ticked in order to be able to find the person, or be able to do this, be able to do that. And for the most part, obviously there are cases where that is true, you can't deny that. But for the most part, I find that you don't have to have all these little things checked off and be, spiritually whole and financially whole and emotionally whole and, mentally stable and all these multiple different things. You don't have to have all things complete in order to find what you're looking for. Because sometimes, whether it comes to in your union with your twin flame, sometimes you can't have those things until you meet that person, until you're actually with that person in relationship. Because some things we have to get to a point in order to almost unlock or download, or whatever terminology you want to use, to be able to access that. And sometimes you could be with your twin flame for 5, 6, 20, 30 years, and then you might only unlock that thing. There's a process to these things becoming available to you, and there aren't any shortcuts. When things come to you, that's when they come to you. You can't make it happen faster. Yes, you can be active about things and push towards getting to that point, but you're not necessarily making it come any faster. It's the path of which you have chosen to get there. It's your destiny, or your whatever you want to call it. It's something that you are aiming towards. And I think too often we get caught up in like, it has to be perfect. Like, you want to have a kid, you got to have everything sorted. I mean, we definitely didn't have everything sorted when we found out we were pregnant with Claire. We didn't have anywhere to live. We
weren't married yet.
We weren't married yet. We weren't super financially stable. You know, there were a lot of things that most people would be like, I would never have a kid. But look at us now, almost 2 years down the line, and we're perfectly fine, I think.
Yeah, 100%. Well, and it's funny that you say that, because actually one of my biggest fears growing up as a kid was having a shotgun wedding. And then it's funny, like, I ended up having, like, a shotgun wedding. But it's funny because energetically it didn't feel like that at all. It felt like a divine union.
Yeah.
You know, but from, like, this is why the twin flame journey can be so hard and be so maddening. Because from the egoic or the outside perspective, people are like, oh, they're just getting married because they're pregnant, right? Rather than this was the divine order that wanted to unfold. And oftentimes things don't unfold in the way that you want them to, because that's actually the trajectory of your highest growth.
Yeah.
Right? And that it actually says that in here. This is something I wanted to touch on. So I've always been hyper independent since childhood because of my needs not being met. Okay, that's one thing. Then there's also a part here at the bottom which is really interesting that says I'm divinely put in financial struggle so that I let my twin back into my life again, as he has an insecurity around me being so full that there's nothing for him to provide. So what's interesting here is I feel like there's instead of taking the responsibility, right, that I'm used to being financially independent. So there's probably actually a little bit of feeling of lack also, which is why this question's coming to mind anyways. Like, oh, do I have to have this sorted before physical union? Because I've always been this way, right? I've always been independent. And one of my greatest growth areas was to allow James to provide for me financially. It was agonizing to me.
You can help now.
I felt what do you think I'm doing? I felt so worthless. Like I really didn't know how much of my value was tied to me bringing in money. And when I was really in a space where I was just a mother, and I don't want to say just a mother like it's less than, but when I was only being a mother, I had to go through so much darkness within myself because of my own limiting beliefs around bringing in financial support to the scenario, and that I wasn't valuable if I didn't do that. So what I would question you is asking yourself, is your greatest growth, rather than about what your twin, rather than putting it on your twin, like, oh, he's not going to feel like he can provide anything. That might be true, but that's not going to help you really too much in your journey. What's going to help you in your journey is asking yourself, okay, why do I feel like I need to have this sorted? Or why am I afraid to accept help, right? Or why do I need to create stories around the way this situation is, right? If you're in financial lack, then likely you're also in a mental lack, because it's hard to be whole and complete if you're in a mental lack already. And then you start seeing it in your physical reality. So no, do you have to have everything perfect, as James was saying before? Of course you don't have to have everything perfect. What you have to do is be aware of your programs and be aware of your limitations, and start asking yourself those questions and being willing to accept help. This is part of the twin flame struggle. Many twin flames are lone wolves and have been lone wolves and have been hyper independent. And so learning to ask for help in that way is a lot of our greatest growth edges. Because we're used to figuring it all out ourselves. We're used to managing it all ourselves. So when we don't manage it all ourselves, we feel worthless, and we feel like we've done something wrong, or we've screwed up because now somebody has to help me. But the truth is, you weren't made to do it alone anyways. You were a twin flame. You were made to do it with a partner. So start accepting the help of the partner, right? And that's what I would say on that.
Listening to your own words.
Of course. Of course. And I do. That's why you're paying for everything now.
God damn it. Why?
So yes. So, and realistically, you guys, if you guys want to like a real look into our finances and how we divvy things up right now, I pay for all my own finances. You pay for the majority of the food now. You pay for the majority of like the car and the fun things. So like it's not that you're paying for everything, it's that you're paying for a general, like most things.
Yeah.
But I still pay my own credit card bill. I still pay all my own.
You're still financially independent.
Right. So I still pay all of my own bills through the work I do on YouTube and coaching and all of that kind of stuff. But it's like the joint stuff that you're paying for at this time, which is really interesting because we were going to talk about this too, because that is the flip-flop of what it was at the start. So this is the thing. This is the twin flame karmic loop.
Well, some of it's a flip-flop because you're still paying your things, I'll still pay my things in the car and stuff, but you're paying for any outings you did, you're paying for majority of the food, you're paying for, all those...
My own car.
Yeah, you had your own car for a while. That's
right.
also true for what, like 3 months you had a car.
Yeah, I wasn't using your car because I didn't know how to drive it.
And then for some reason I decided to teach you how to drive my car.
Yeah, exactly.
And now I don't have a car.
Right. So it is almost exactly the flip-flop of how it was at the beginning, which is super interesting, you guys, because this is literally the twin flame karmic loop. Is like you will get the experience one twin flame for any amount of time. It doesn't have to be as long drawn out as this loop has been for us, but like twin flames will get this experience to be on both sides of the spectrum, right? And this is, I think, how we learn unconditional love, is because we learn how to treat each other when we are in lack.
Yeah.
Right? Like when I am in lack and I come to you and say, I really need this, but I can't afford it, you're always like, yes, of course, let's make a plan, right? And so like we're able to better understand how to treat each other when we've been through the same thing and we feel it, right? When I was like the financial provider, I know that you felt a lot of shame around not being in the same place. You never spoke about it. Maybe if I brought it up, you would have spoke about it, but I knew that it was sitting under the surface.
I mean, we had spoken about it at some point down the line. I mean, obviously there were parts of it that, for me, especially as well, I found being a male in today's society, there was a lot of things I was like, well, these are the kind of things like, taking you out to dinner and then me taking you out to dinner and you paying for the dinner. It just doesn't sit right with me. Does it mean that that's wrong or anything? No. I mean, I still appreciate there's still times where you're going like, cool, let's go have a coffee date, and you buy for the coffee. It feels nice. It's like a nice little treat for me as well. But I think the only thing at that point was because I wasn't able to really do that for you as nearly as much as I wanted. I could every now and again if I had a little bit of extra, but not being able to give that to you, especially in the start of a relationship, it was a very nervous point because I didn't know.
But it proved a lot about me and how much I actually loved you and not just like what you could provide me. You know what I mean?
I mean, that's one way to look at it. But no, it did. It's like that there was so much more to it and it definitely wasn't an easy time for me, but I also knew that if you weren't happy, you would have said something.
Yeah. Well, and we both knew practically, this is why when people say the twin flame journey is not like a romantic relationship, it's like literally it's hard work, right? And it's literally opening yourself up and it's letting go of stereotypical roles, right? It's like saying, okay, you can be this and you can be this. You can be this and you can be this. So I think the foundation of this question, I would say the biggest takeaway is ask yourself where you have limiting beliefs around this, where you think you have to have these box checked off, where you think you're already not whole and complete. Why do you think you're already not whole and complete? This is literally the self-help trap, is that there's always another thing to fix. There's always another thing to heal. And we never get there because we're never willing to say, I'm actually perfect just the way I am. I can relax. There's nothing more to do. I'm already whole and complete. I don't need to solve any other problems. And I think that's a really important takeaway to this video.
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately in these kind of relationships is you get kind of like you're saying, like the romantic relationship, like kind of what you see in movies and series, like this out there relationship that's got everything perfect. And yes, you might get relationships like that, but these kind of relationships, it's I don't want to say more real, but it's more real, it's more raw,
authentic.
It's authentic.
Yeah.
It is what it is, and there's no way around it. This is what you're doing, this is what you're going through, that is that. There's no shortcuts. There's no
Yeah,
anything that can.
sugarcoating.
Yeah, there's no sugarcoating. This is it. That is that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's because the mirroring is so strong in these relationships. It's like you can't.
Damn, I look good today.
You can't hide from yourself.
Don't you guys think I look good?
I've grown a lot of facial hair. But anyways, thank you guys for watching. If you have questions, please put them down below in the form and we will be sure to review them and try and answer them on the channel. And yeah, if this video touched you, please share it with somebody you love and comment down below how this has shown up for you in your twin flame relationship. Thank you so much for being here. We'll see you in the next video. Bye.
Bye.